Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jason, or as you may know me around the internet as EasyCat. Really, you can call me whatever you want. I answer to many things, some of them degrading. What? So today I'm going to be showing you all the things that I read in April. It's not a huge list, so we should go through them pretty quickly. I want to apologize because this video is quite late, and it's probably going to be quite ridiculous because I have been sick the last couple of days. So at the very end of April, I went to LA to go to Y'all West, which is a fun little book festival they have there. Super fun, but then when I got back, I immediately got the flu. So I've been really sick, and if you can hear my voice, I'm still very sick, but I feel like I have enough energy to at least make this video and get this, you know, done, because what are we gonna do? We're gonna wait till the end of May and then I'm gonna wrap up 2 months. That'll be chaos, chaos. So just bear with me. I'll take sniffling breaks and I'll cut those out so you don't have to watch them. But let's jump in and I'll show you everything that I read in April. All right, so first up, I'm continuing my Narnia read. I'm trying to read one of these a month. There's only 7 of them, so I should be able to get through them pretty quick. But this is Prince Caspian. It is the second published book. I didn't know there was such a debate between how to read these. I have decided to read them in publishing order. It seems to be what most people recommend, but apparently, you know, you can read them in like the chronological order, and people get real mean about it in my comments. So if you're upset that I'm reading them in published order, I'm sorry. That's a weird thing to be upset about. So you can read them however you want, and I can read them however I want, and that's the great thing about being different people, right? I don't know what to tell you. I liked this quite a bit more than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is weird because in many ways it kind of feels like a rehash, right? Like it's kind of doing a lot of the same things and hitting a lot of the same beats that Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe hit. But I thought the writing was better. I liked the characters more in this one. I liked that it was kind of like a story within a story, and how we learn about Prince Caspian and his story. There just were a lot of aspects about this that I like. I really don't like Aslan, and I think because of what Aslan represents from a faith aspect, I think part of that is playing on why I don't like Aslan as a character. I find him to be kind of manipulative. I find that when he shows, the second he has shown up in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and in this book was when the book got less exciting for me. Because I really like the 4 kids. I really like their story. I really like them exploring this world. I like the animal characters. I like the cozy vibes. But then when Aslan shows up and starts like giving me a faith lesson, it's like, that's when I check out. I'm like, I'm over it. I'm over it. I feel like he's probably going to be in every book though, because he's a Jesus lion. He's got to be there, right? The ending of this book made me very sad because we sort of learned that 2 of the characters are not going to be coming back to Narnia. So I don't know. Like I said, I like this quite a bit more than I liked Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I'm excited to keep going with Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which I'll be reading in May. But this was definitely a step up, and I'm excited because I'm assuming the writing just gets better and better, so it'll be fun to see that for sure. I only read 1 manga this month. I don't know what's going on, but like so I think I talked about this at the beginning of April. Did I? I don't even know where I am anymore. But this was my first month as a full-time content creator, and what I have found is that I have even less time than I did before somehow. And I think it's because I'm trying to do so many things, right? Like you've probably seen, I'm streaming on Twitch, I'm streaming on YouTube and TikTok, and I'm making new videos, and I'm doing all these things, but it's amounting to me having even less time. So I've really had to carve out space in my day to read, and I just haven't quite gotten around to figuring out how to manage manga in among that as well. So I only read 1 manga this month, which was Dinosaur Sanctuary 2. A couple months ago, I read the first one, and then I was just waiting for the second one to come out. It just came out. It's so good. It's such a good series. If you like dinosaurs, if you like stuff like Jurassic Park, even if you've never read a manga before in your life, I think you can read this and really enjoy it. It deals with, you know, basically, it's almost like a spiritual sequel to Jurassic Park. Like, all these dinosaur parks got open. People were so excited. And then, you know, the excitement, the hype kind of died down. And people were like, ugh, dinosaurs again, right? And so now all these dinosaurs are like older, and they're being put in these like conservations and these sanctuaries to be taken care of. And so it deals with them being taken care of by the people in these sanctuaries. And it also, there's a lot of science built in. Like in between each chapter, there's a little you know, written out thing to kind of talk to you about the science that went into making the chapter. I don't know, it's like educational, but also I just really like the characters. I like the dinosaurs. I like the story that they're telling. It's really lovely. I think it's great. Like I said, if you've never read a manga before, I think you could easily read this. And it's only 2 volumes so far, so it's really easy to jump into. I think some manga can feel very scary because you're like, I want to get into manga, and you're like, that has 58,000 books. That's a lot. This only has 2 so far. There will be more, but it's easy to get caught up. So Dinosaur Sanctuary. Okay, so over the last month, we started watching The Last Kingdom on Netflix, which I'd never seen before. And I really like it a lot. So I was like, and then I found out that there were books based on it. So I was like, oh, well, I have to read the books. So I've only read one so far. I read the first book, which is actually called The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. And I like this a lot too. You know, this is historical fiction. It's dealing with, you know, Alfred the King. If you've seen the show, you know what it's dealing with. It actually, the show follows the book quite closely. Things sort of happen in a different order, and we really get to see Uhtred, the main character, grow up a little bit more. In the show, he's like a kid, and then all of a sudden he's an adult. And in this, you see like the gradual progression of age, and a lot of things that happen in the show with him as an adult are actually happening with him as like a 13, 14-year-old. I think it makes more sense from a show perspective for him to be an adult, because some of the things, when you imagine a child doing it, you're like, woo, that's rough, but, you know, in the time period, it makes sense, right? But yeah, I liked this. It's all told from Uhtred's perspective, so it's a first-person book. But if you like Viking-type stories, and you like historical fiction, and you don't mind, this is very adult. I mean, it has all the adult, trigger warning, adult things that you could have. Well, not all of them. Book Talk has changed my perception of what all of the trigger warnings could mean, because there were things that I didn't even know existed in some spicy books, and then people are telling me about, like, why do you need to have that done to you by a paperclip? Anyway, Book Talk is a wild place, and I love it, as you know, but it is wild. This was really fun and really good, and I'm excited to read the next one. It sort of takes us through, I would say, like the first 4 or 5 episodes of season 1. So I'm excited to read more and see kind of where all the books line up with the show. Like I said, very similar to the show, little differences here and there, but I find the show to be a pretty darn faithful adaptation, which I think is pretty cool. Continuing onward, I read Howl's Moving Castle for the very first time. I've never read this before. People were very excited for me to read this. This had so much hype, and I think, unfortunately, it maybe had a little too much hype for me going into it. Does that make sense? Don't get me wrong, I thought it was great. It was a really good book, but it is a book I wish I'd read when I was younger. I also wish I had read it earlier on in my cozy fantasy journey. So cozy fantasy is really experiencing this like huge uprising right now. Like people are just loving cozy fantasy, myself included. And this definitely has like cozy fantasy vibes. And unfortunately, so many cozy fantasy books sort of get some of the things that they get from this book. And because I'm reading this later in my cozy fantasy journey, this feels like the copy. Does that make sense? I know it's not. I know it's not. I know this came before them. But it feels like the, oh, I've already seen this before. You know what I mean? Because of where I'm reading it in my own reading journey. That being said, I really loved the main character. I really liked her story. Howl is such a pain in the butt. But he is like the dark, brooding, you know, he is, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people liked him and then moved on to people like the Darkling. And, you know, it's like, I get it. I get the love for this book. And I do think I'll read the other ones in the series. There was a lot that I liked about it. The story structure is kind of weird because it kind of is all over the place. It almost doesn't feel like it necessarily has like a beginning, middle, and end. It sort of feels like short stories within a bigger story a little bit. But I did enjoy it. I just kind of wish I'd read it earlier in my life. And I wish I had gone into it with a little bit less of the hype. Like, I wish I hadn't gone into it with so many people being like, it's the best thing I've ever read, ever. Because I feel like I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more had those two things happened. But it was excellent. I'm going to, at some point in this coming month, watch the movie because I want to compare the two. Because I've only seen the movie once, but I feel like from what I remember, it's pretty different. So now that I have this fresh in my mind, I kind of want to put the two side by side and see what I think. I'm realizing I read a lot of YA this month. So I read The Jump by Brittany Morris. I actually haven't talked about this at all yet on my TikTok. So you guys be the first to hear what I thought of this book. This is a YA book about a team of kids who are basically trying to solve a mystery. So they kind of do these like real world mysteries, and they have a team and they're like other teams in the city, and they sort of create puzzles for each other to discover. And of course, a puzzle comes up that is being kind of organized by a secret organization, and they're trying to figure it out, but things get very dangerous very quickly. And they kind of get embroiled in this big scheme and kind of get in too deep. This was really fun. I mean, it was a very short read. It's, if you like that action sort of things, if you like the Inheritance games, things like that, I think you would like this. In fact, I thought the mystery of this was better than the Inheritance games. Just personally speaking, I've only read the first of those books, but just comparing the two, I thought the mystery in this was more engaging. Super diverse cast. I mean, really, really, really diverse cast. Every character was super interesting. There was a trans character. There was an autistic character. There was just so much diversity to each character in the story. Like, there's so much intersectionality. I feel like everyone is represented in this book, and I think that was really cool. Like, it was just cool to see a team that was so often in team books, and this is changing a lot now, but in the past, a team would have like a bunch of like white straight characters and then like one piece of diversity, right? Like one black character or one gay character or one character that had all of them in one. Every single character in this book has like a lot of intersectionality, and seeing them all work together and seeing their friendships and seeing how they support each other and seeing their specialties when it came to them in this team of puzzle solvers was really, really cool. Ultimately, I think the book was story-wise throughout the entire thing, it's like a 3 or 4 out of 5. It never really hit the heights of some other like mystery type books that I've read. But I liked the characters a lot. So that kind of made up for the fact that I thought the overall mystery and how that kind of unfolds, I was like, oh, that's all right. But the characters were so good that I kind of didn't care. You know what I mean? Like when I got to the end and I was like, oh, okay, that's what the mystery is. All right, that's fine. But really, I just wanted to spend more time with the characters because I really enjoyed all of them. So yeah, that was The Jump. Somehow I feel like I've left a lot of my favorite things that I read this past month for last. So it's all uphill from here. I read what is in here? Okay. I read Always the Almost. This was by Edward Underhill. This is the story of a young trans boy who has just recently come out as being trans. He's just going through the early stages of being trans. Like he's still working on getting people to use his correct name, his correct pronouns, kind of figuring out like how he wants to dress to represent himself. He is also a musician. So he's been going to this like piano competition for many years. And now for the first time, he is going as his transitioned self as a boy. And so kind of dealing with like walking in and having people look at you, be like, wait, who is that? Oh, wait, is that person? What happened? You know, like dealing with all of that awkwardness of like when you first come out as trans. And of course, you know, he meets a boy as we do, right? So it's a really cute rom-com. But I think most of all, the two things that really stood out to me about this book were, first of all, the music aspect. I just loved seeing, I think seeing characters who are passionate about something like music, or I just read a book this month that I'll talk about in May, sports, or being passionate about something for young people and really watching them go after it and like learn to be good at it is always fun to me. It's a reason I love like sports anime, sports manga. It's just really fun to see young people like find a passion and just like go for it, right? That was really cool. But also, and I already mentioned this, the fact that we're dealing with a character who has really just recently, I think it's like 3 or 4 months ago when the story starts, come out as trans and sort of navigating that really challenging time where, you know, your family has said, yes, we accept and love you, but they're still having a hard time with it. You know, your teachers are still messing up your name from time to time. You're still figuring out like the bathroom situation, like seeing a character kind of in the midst of that, not right at the beginning of it, right? And also not like way down the line, but seeing them kind of in that middle gray area where I feel like we just, you know, I have not seen a lot of books talk about that area yet, like that early stages of figuring it all out and kind of just patiently waiting for the people around you that you can't control to figure it out, right? And I just don't think we see a lot of that. And so I think that vulnerability in this book and really approaching that is going to be so powerful and so important and so relatable for so many young trans people. And I think it'll be relatable even for young like gay people or queer people, not necessarily trans, because that early stage when you first come out in some way is so freaking hard. And I think so many books out there talk about the coming out part, the part where a lot of books end where it's like they finally tell their mom, right? But then afterwards, it's happily ever after. Whereas this book really approaches that other side of it of like navigating those relationships, navigating those friendships, navigating that thing that you go to once a year that last year this character went as a girl and now he is there as his true self, and seeing the reactions around him. And I just think it was really, 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 really well done. And I think so many young people are going to really love this book. So Always the Almost, really excellent, highly recommend. Okay, remember when I said it's all uphill from here? I lied, because so a friend and I are reading a classic every single month together. We have like our own little like pairs classic reading club. I feel like the cold medicine is starting to get in there. Everything's starting to get a little fuzzy. So we read Alice in Wonderland. This is the first time I've ever read this, and I did not like it. I know, it's a classic. Everybody loves it. Everybody adores it. And listen, the world, I guess, was cool, and like the wildness of it, the craziness of it is fun. But first of all, Alice is just, I just really dislike her. She's so rude. She's so mean. She's just so like, I don't know, just every situation she was in, I felt like she was such a jerk to the other characters. And the other characters, I get it. Like, the point is to just, you know, just say the most random, we're all mad down here, so just, it's all nuts and play, and the word play. And there were aspects of that I like, right? Like, I like the play on words. I like, you know, taking words and kind of manipulating the meanings to build confusion. I think that's really fun. I mean, it kind of reminds me of things like Waiting for Godot or things like that. But it's all seen through the eyes of this young girl who's just such a jerk to everyone she meets. And I'm like, why are you so rude? And yes, she's in this like kind of bad situation, but a lot of the situations are ultimately made worse by her being so mean to the people she meets. If she was just nice, she could have avoided so many problems. And I feel like we got to the end. I don't think she learned anything. We got to the end of the book, and I feel like she learned nothing. She just went on her way and continued being rude to everyone. Alice in Wonderland. I did not like this book. Okay, this month for Easy Cats Book Club, we read The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, and boy, was this just so excellent. I am really now starting to realize that I really love the, like, one last time, get the band back together, one last adventure. Is that a trope? If it is, I love it. Amina Al-Sarafi as a character is excellent. It's great to see a more mature female character go out on adventure, deal with the troubles of aging, but also just be a completely awesome character. This is such an adventure, and it's such a fun adventure. And it's what, if you like stuff like Pirates, like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, if you like high seas piratey adventure with a dash of fantasy, a light drip. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit more than a dash of fantasy, but for most of the book, it's a light seasoning of fantasy elements. Really, this is like a found family team, get the team back together one last time for one last adventure that ends up going about as ridiculously wrong, and everything that can go wrong goes wrong, and you just, all these characters just trying to make it home. But it was so good. It was so fun, beautifully written, and, you know, I think so often, something I have to remind myself is sometimes I feel like the best books are the ones that emotionally traumatize you, right? Like, I think about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I think about Babel. These books that I consider really excellent, and I consider them excellent because they made me feel so much, right? Like, they made me just they just completely destroyed me on the inside. But The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi is not a, particularly sad book. It's not a book that's like an emotional roller coaster. It's just really fun and really exciting and just an adventure done well. And I think it's an important reminder that books can be fun and frantic and adventurous and still be just excellent. And that is how I felt about Amina Al-Sarafi. Just such an awesome book. If you get a chance, you should definitely check this one out. All right, I read F.T. Lucan's new book, Spellbound. Now, I did not particularly love F.T. Lucan's last book because basically the main trope in that was miscommunication, which is my least favorite trope on the face of the planet. But I loved Spellbound. This to me is cozy fantasy, YA cozy fantasy. Two characters who are, it kind of takes like the best of ghost hunting and mixes it with like witchcraft and wizardry into this like kind of cool world where characters have to go out and solve problems from like a ghost hunting / magic perspective. The two of them also work for like sorcerers who are essentially like teaching them their ways. And the main character doesn't have any magic, so they're trying to like basically find a way to get magic because it's how they connected with their grandmother. I don't know, it just was really fun. It was really lighthearted, pretty low stakes. But like I said, it had that cozy fantasy feeling. The thing is, I love fantasy and I love ghost hunting. So taking those two aspects and putting them in one cute little queer YA book, absolutely that was going to be a win for me. I think if you're looking for something cozy, low stakes, adorable, cute, with some fantasy and a little bit of paranormal in there, Spellbound was excellent and I really, really enjoyed it. Also, just, I mean, it's hard to see what the thing I have going on here, but beautiful cover. I really like this one a lot. I finally read another Discworld book. So I read Lords and Ladies. God, this book, so good. My mind is blown. I feel like, You know, I mentioned this in my TikTok video that I did about Lords and Ladies. When I started reading these and I told people I was going to read them in publication order, a lot of people were very upset. They were like, you can't read Discworld in publication order. You have to pick a series and read it like that. And how dare you? Like, people were like actually mad at me. Very similar to my Narnia situation. I have a knack for making people angry with the order in which I read things. But I'm so glad that I read them in publication order, that I'm reading them in publication order, because it's great to see Terry Pratchett grow as a writer. Like, every book, his writing just gets stronger and sharper and smarter and funnier and wittier. And it's just great to see that grow little by little with every book. Granny Weatherwax, amazing character. I've come to realize that the Witches books are my favorite of the Discworld series. I love Death. I love his books, and I want him to be my favorite character because he's so cool. But Granny Weatherwax is absolutely my favorite. I love her. And I love the Witches. I love her and Nanny Ogg's relationship. I love, like, all the side characters in this are excellent. Watching Margaret learn to be a queen is ridiculous. Watching these witches have to basically fight fairies, which are the lords and the ladies in the book. They're like the fairies that come from another realm, and they just cause all the problems. And watching how they go about doing that. Watching watching Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg deal with, like, younger witches who think they're smarter than the old people. And just, you know, it just has so many real world connotations, but it's just so fun. There are some jokes in this book. I mean, every one of the Discworld books has a joke or two that make me laugh out loud. This one especially, there were moments where I, like, gasped because I was not prepared for, like, the level that the joke was going to go to. And then it, like, went there and I was like, like, I would have a gasp and then I would laugh. Like, that was how I felt about the humor in this one. But so good. The next one, I'm finally going to get back into the Night Watch, the City Guards. So I'm excited to check back in with them because I've only read one of their books so far. But I love the Witches. Every time a witch book comes up, I know I'm going to love it, and this was no exception. And last but certainly not least, I got to read Angie Thomas's new book, Nick Blake and the Remarkables. Now, Angie Thomas is just an out-of-this-world YA author. She wrote The Hate U Give, if you're not familiar, but all of her books so far have just been really excellent. On the Come Up, Concrete Rose, they're all so good. And I was really excited to see how she would do with fantasy, because sometimes when YA contemporary writers dig their toe into fantasy, sometimes it's awesome and sometimes it is a train wreck. But I'm happy to say this was phenomenal. So to me, this is like Percy Jackson meets Legendborn. The reason I say that is it has a lot of the celebration of, like, Black culture and Black stories and Black families and Black lore and folklore and all of that stuff, similar to some aspects of Legendborn. I don't want to give too much away if you haven't read that book, because that is part of the story. But it also has, like, the really fun, like, kids going on an adventure within all of this folklore aspect that Percy Jackson has. So it really is like a cool combination of those two. This is middle grade, but I would recommend it for older middle grade, like the 12, 13, like young YA, older middle grade, because it does get pretty dark at times. But so good. This is going to be a trilogy, I believe, and it's just an excellent start to it. It opens up the world. We get to see so much of it, but it also leaves a lot of room. The ending leaves some really great cliffhangers for us to be like, what's going to happen next? The characters are all excellent. Like, the characters are so great, and the way that they've incorporated these three characters and made them different from each other so that they are really important to each other's journey, I think is awesome. Nick Blake herself, the main character, I thought was great, and watching her really explore, like, kind of figuring, it's sort of a story. To me, it has that coming of age aspect of, like, figuring out your parents are actually people and not just your parents. You know what I mean? When you suddenly realize, oh, my parents aren't just like these humans that take care of me. Like, they have their own lives, and they had their lives before I existed, and they were different people then and they're different people now. And it has, like, that aspect of really discovering that your parents are more than what you thought they were, and for better or for worse. But this was just so fun. And from start to finish, and I think it's just so cool that there's so much of the folklore in it is, a lot of it can relate to things that we're familiar with to kind of welcome us in, but then it has its own twist on it, right? Because it is obviously like a slightly different folklore than we're used to in a lot of, like, fantasy books. And I just think all of that was handled really well. I think it feels accessible no matter where you're coming at it from a fantasy standpoint. I mean, I've said this before, but even Greek fantasy books, sometimes I read them and I feel like they assume you know everything about Greek fantasy because it's so prevalent everywhere. And oftentimes I feel lost because maybe I don't know all of these things. And so I really like that little bit of explanation, or that little moment of making sure you understand what's going on. And Angie Thomas just does that so well. She does it really well of like welcoming you into this world, giving you a little bit, well, these are kind of like werewolves, but actually, right? And then like giving you the what's different. And just, it's just so good. I think everybody's going to really enjoy it. If you like young adult or you like middle grade, or you have some kids that are like I said, older middle grade, I think it would be good for, because it does get a little bit dark and spooky at times. But really good. This was just awesome. And Angie Thomas, at this point, Angie Thomas can do no wrong. I mean, right, an adult book? I would take an adult book. She's not watching this, but if she is, I would love to read an adult book by Angie Thomas, because I think that would be awesome. But this was great. That is everything that I read in April. A little bit softer reading month for me, but that's okay, because it was my first month doing full-time content creation, which apparently takes way more time than I ever thought possible, but in a good way. So I'm going to get back to reading for May. I'm going to finally finish off this cold. Thank you so much for joining me and going through all of these books. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you know when I post a new video. I stream a lot on YouTube, as well as I post a couple videos every month. And if you're interested in any of my other socials or my Patreon or my Discord, there is a link in my bio, so make sure to check that out as well. Thank you so much. And as always,